Well, everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Mr. Harrigan's Phone. And this is from writer-director John Lee Hancock and based off of a short story by Stephen King. And this focuses on a young man who spends most of his younger life into his teen years going to an old rich man's house and reading him books out loud. And this is a turn where like iPhones and smartphones started spreading, and they connect over iPhones. And this basically, that's the thing. I'm trying to sit here and explain this story in just a short, compressed way. And I feel like that's one of the issues with this film, is that it keeps going. And you have this story of grief and loneliness and our deep obsession with these and our connection to the world. And I feel like this story has a lot to say. Now, how Hancock says it is very blunt and very on the nose, and you're just like, okay, we get it. It's right there in the dialogue very explicitly. And not only is it there in the dialogue, but then it's in the narration from our main character explaining to us it's in the dialogue. And it's just like, okay, man, get over it. And I feel like there's some pacing issues with this film because you don't, and it's not because, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing that you don't know exactly where the story is going, but this story just plods along in a way that's just like, what's the purpose of this film? And you could definitely tell this is a short story stretched into an hour and 40 some odd minute film. And you have this young man, Craig, played by Jaden Martell, who gives a great performance. He is a really talented young actor, and we feel for him. We feel his loneliness, his grief, missing his mother, and you can appreciate the relationship that he develops with Mr. Harrigan, played by Donald Sutherland, who gives a fantastic performance here. And they give him a lot of things to work with. And like, he gets to monologue a little bit, he gets to throw out some of the themes of the film, and even though, like I mentioned before, it's pretty on the nose and very blunt, and you have Kirby Howell-Baptiste, who's great as Miss Hart, who is Craig's teacher at school. The film deals with like Craig dealing with a bully, and how that deals that, him and his relationship with his father, him and his relationship with Mr. Harrigan, him and his relationship with Miss Hart, him and his budding relationship with this young woman who they don't even like talk to each other, they just text each other. And where this film, I'm sitting there watching this, and here's the thing, I was intrigued because I wanted to know where it went. I do feel like it took its swell old time getting there and lacked a richness in how it was presented, and I feel like that's Hancock. He's solid, and I think he does a solid job with this film, but like, all I could think of, like, I did not read the synopsis, I did not read the genre, I did not read who wrote this, but as I was watching this, I'm like, this is definitely a Stephen King story, like, hands down, 100% a Stephen King story. And you just wish that like somebody like a Frank Darabont had been directing this, and I feel like it would have had a richerness to it instead of feeling a little bit melodramatic. And that's the kind of vibe at times that I got from Hancock's direction. And the composer, Javier Navarrete, does a great job. I love the score in this film. It does a lot of the heavy lifting that I wish the direction did in terms of like building an atmosphere. But this says it's a horror film, and here's the thing. Something happens, and Craig's moving on, trying to move on with his life and connecting through his phone. And it seems like his phone's playing tricks on him, and I could tell where it's just like, this is trying to be like scary, but it didn't feel that way. I never once felt scared or terror or anything like that. And if that was the intention of the story, then I think that it kind of failed. But what I have to say, though, is this has strong performances. I was intrigued. I think it has a lot of great themes and ideas to it, even if it's a little blunt with it. And I do feel like there's a decent amount of emotion packed into this, and you could feel that coming from Stephen King's story. And in general, I think this is a solid Netflix adaptation of a Stephen King story. I feel like there's potential for this to be greater, but I also feel like this was maybe stretched a little too thin. But in the end, I think this is something worth giving a watch. But those are my thoughts on Mr. Harrigan's Phone. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.